Yud Tes the Sivan and Tashin Samech Tes. We're in Hemshik Samech Tes and Rabbi Rishav on Amid Lamed Zion.
So we saw that the Sheresh of Ruach HaKodesh was Lamayla min Sheresh HaNavuah. And even though we saw that Begolui HaGiluim, the Navuah was higher than the union of Ruach HaKodesh. However, B'Shersha, Ruach HaKodesh is Lamayla from Navuah. And we brought the Dugma or the Raya from, the Raya from Achia HaShileni, that he was the teacher, the rabbi in Navuah, Shel Eliyahu, and yet after became he was Machir Kol HaNaviim. In other words, he was a very early figure in the union of the Naviim. After became he was only from the Beis Din Shel David. We see from that even though David wasn't a Navi, and his union was that he was the Rabbein, as it's put down, he was the leader or the teacher of all the Bali Ruach HaKodesh. Nonetheless, we see that Achia HaShileni was bottled Mibchinas Beis Din, he was only bottled to David. Remuvan Mizeh Ruach HaKodesh Lamayla B'Shoirash Mihana Anavuah. And as we pointed out, Begoli, the Navi, experiences in Yonim in a much higher oifen. Well, that's when they get to the Adam, then they get to the Etzem Adam, and to the Gilui Ba'olam. Because the Navi experiences are even Riyah is brought down there by the Alter Rebbe in Geras HaKodesh, and he also experiences that in the oifen, that he's Megala it to the Olam, and like the Alter Rebbe writes it in Shara Yichud at the end of Perek Beis, that when the Navi talks, then he talks that it's the Dvar Avaya al Piv, or Pifiv, and he's Megala in Yon Elakus to the Makapi. Mashink in Sheresh Ruach HaKodesh is higher. So you need to understand what is the Mailam, what's the Inyan that Ruach HaKodesh, the Maila from the Inyan of Navuah. First of all, Mainaf Kimina Bezeh. And zweitens says, how is that recognizable if we study carefully the Toitzoyes of the two Inyanim of Navuah and Ruach HaKodesh? What do we see to be the Maila? And that would indicate that one is Lamaila Mi'asheni. So we have to say that the Nafkamina is that whether it be mitzad just that that's the way the Eivshter was manhig the history of Inyanim, or it was mamish kira hefsik in the yichilas of the world to have Navuah, but we see there was a certain period of history where it's mashma that there wasn't any Navuah, or there wasn't Naviim, and the Gemara uses the expression Poska HaNavuah MiYisrael, etc. We see that there were times after just before the end of Bayis Sheni, the Churban of Bayis Sheni, so the Gemara says Poska HaNavuah MiYisrael. And it only began, we don't really have the Gemara which says when it began again, but the famous Sikha from the Rebbe in Toshin Nun Aleph, the Rebbe said that it began with the beginning of Navuah returned to the world quite early period in the history of the Rishonim, and he brings down from the Balei HaTesis that Tesis said about one of their members that he was a Navi, and we have to guys in Bein Yitzchak Sagi Nahor, he was blind. And the whole thing, the Gansavir and the Meforshim and the Sfarim, that he was blind, he didn't actually see Bariya Gashmis, but he was he was a Navi. And then we see the Rambam writes that B'Yomov, in the Geras Taimon, the Rambam writes that there was a Novi, Bisman Ahu, Biyomo, in his time there was a Novi, and the Rebbe seems to be the opinion that the Rambam himself is a Novi. It's a it appears that the Inyan and Nevuah came back, as it were, at a very early period. And so the Rambam in Hilchos Nevuah, if we look carefully in the Hilchos Yesod HaTorah, where he talks about the Inyan and Nevuah, the Rambam doesn't mention that there was a period of history where there was no Nevuah. He doesn't even bring that whole Lashon. And he just talks about the Inyan for Nevuah, but Lashon Hoiva, the way Nevuah works. How does it go? What are the conditions? And how do you know if a person's a Novi, and what's the difference between a Novi Emes and a Novi Hepech Emes v'chulo? He doesn't say that it's dependent in periods in history, B'klal. But from there, it would appear that the Inyan for Nevuah really is shite the whole time. And if we said a posuk of a Nevuah, it just means that for some reason in the Tanai or Olam, there weren't any Nevuahs at a certain, between certain dates or in certain periods of time, there weren't any actual Nevuahs. Of the capacity for there to be Nevuah was there the whole time. So it's not the pshat of posuk Nevuah mi ha'elam that ties that there weren't people who could, there was nobody who could be a Novi. There were people who could be Nevi'im, and there's always people who could be Nevi'im, but it just for some reason didn't function during that period. The Rebbe said it came back on a regular basis after the infant, the Baal Shem Tov. And after the Yidden that were prior to the Baal Shem Tov, the Chevaya, HaKedid Tzadikim and Historian, v'chulu, and with the Baal Shem Tov, the Talmidov, and Talmidov, the return of the Nevuah Kipshutei, we saw. However, we see that there was a period in history, actually, what shouldn't be, the Pirush was there, that the Gemara says there wasn't really any Nevuah, but Poyo. Masha Enkein, Ruach HaKodesh, we don't find any such statement of Posca Ruach HaKodesh. We see that Ruach HaKodesh was always Shayach, and that was even Shayach by Kama V'Kama, Gedolah Yisrael, B'Koladeros, that they indicated what their Chaverim and their Talmidim V'Oid said about them, that they had Ruach HaKodesh. So we see that the nafkamina is that being from very high shoyrish, Ruach HaKodesh is able to continue through all conditions in the world, even when certain conditions, whether they're human or whether they're mitzad u'mayla, that cause a certain hefsek in the Inyan HaNevuah, but in Ruach HaKodesh not. Worse, because Ruach HaKodesh is from a higher madrega, therefore it's able to preserve itself and continue b'chol hazmanim, b'chol ha'ifhanim. And that's the other shayla. The answer to the other shayla is, what is the speciality in the Teitzah of Ruach HaKodesh? And therefore, how do we see that Ruach HaKodesh, in the actual effects of it in life, Papoyo, is l'mayla? Because we see that the Inyan of Ruach HaKodesh comes down, dark in the Poshet Inyanim in the world, whereby the Baalei Ruach HaKodesh state and indicate and say all sorts of inyanim that are going to happen, like we brought the stories last night, or things that will be, or things that are, which are a mile from the awareness of ordinary, in inverted commas, B'nai Adam. And that's an indication that Kol Lamata Yesa, B'Shor is Lamaila Yesa. In other words, since it's able to come down into simple inyanim, and affect the world, the pashtus, if it were to get on this train or not to get on it, or to travel on a plane or not to travel on it, and with other sort of inyanim that we see in the Baal Ruach HaKodesh, well, that's indicatory that the shurish must be very high, because something which is b'shurish, gavoya, is able to be yored and poil lamata b'yesha kiyadua. And that's why Nevuah, being is a very high Gilui in Seder HaGiluim, it's not able to come Lamata Mata, and it's not able to come B'chol Hazmanim and B'chol Ha'inyanim Ha'pshutim, even though the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya in Geras HaKodesh and another, in chapter Kof Beis over there, he brings it to Inyanim HaGashmim from the Odom, and Parnasosai, Vinyonim, which are not sort of very well known why and how that it happens to be that way. Lo Yeduim El Neviim Sheb Yisrael. They make the Alter Rebbe that only Neviim can understand certain Inyonim in the life of a man. But that seems to be in Yonim Peshutim. We have to say that that's in a different oifen, like we pointed out yesterday. Ruach HaKodesh is where the mensch doesn't really know anything except the Teitzah from the Indian. I want to say anything. he knows Be'ika the Poel. Either you got to do that or you got to do something else. Or that is Shayach or that's not Shayach. There will be maybe a Indian Tei or Lahevim Mizeh. Inyonim, as you might call, Chatuchim and Laloi Hezber on Laloi Ria Chushius in the Zah. Mashiach Anovi, he's able to see the Inyonim Baria V'chulu. And why is the Inyan for Nevuah higher if we have Bali Ruach HaKodesh to kill? Why do you need Nevi'im? Because in the Inyan for Giluim, the Inyan for Nevi'im are higher, and the whole tachlis of the world is it should be Gilu Elikus Mamish. The Nevi'im are greater, they're more, as it were, shayach to the ultimate tachlis of the Eivishter, because they actually reveal Inyanim in the world, Begolui Inyane Elikus, and Ria Chushias. The Alter Rebbe seems to say over there in Tanya it's not mamish Ria Chushias, but it's a very high form of spiritual Ria, something similar to what we saw about the Arizal at the time when he was asleep on the Shabbos afternoon, on the Shabbos afternoon, similar to that. So therefore that's just a brief glance at the whole Inyan of the Ruach HaKodesh. And so the Nisach HaMayim was as man that all Yidden were zeicher to the Inyan from Ruach HaKodesh. All those who were shoyev, the Inyan from Mayim, Shavte Mayim B'sosei, and they took part in the Simcha and the Etzem Nisuch at the Mayim, which was Shorsha Mipchinas HaChochma, or they were zeicher, they somehow or another came to that level of Ruach HaKodesh. And that's what he brings now, V'yena ben Amitai. But that was the name of one of the trails, or one of the latter Nevi'im. Kibel Nevuosei Ba'es Nisuch HaMayim. They state in the Yerushalmi, and Tesa brings it at the beginning of Perach HaCholiyom, that Yena ben Amitai received his Nevuah during the time of the Nisuch HaMayim in the Beis HaMikdash Hashem. Darei yesh beklal Mosayim, yesh beklal Mosayim Mona. In other words, that if you get the Inyan of Ruach HaKodesh b'shas the Nisuch HaMayim, then Nevuah was kiru. That's a Inyan that you could get. And if you're already getting 200, then automatically you got another Inyan for 100. So since he was getting the higher Inyan mitzad Shorah, was the Inyan from Chochma, he got the Inyan from Nevuah. I don't say, ask yourself to show why didn't all the other peoples also, they should also have Nevuah, but they're Mosayim, Mosayim Mona. If you got 200, then they automatically got 100. So all the people who got the Gilu from Ruach HaKodesh should have had Nevuah. So what is the teretz? The teretz is maybe Ein Lachanami. Maybe they did have a certain trace of Nevuah. And we have to say that Nevuah is a Inyan that not always, and not B'chol Inyanim, when it's Efshar, the Efshar necessarily give it. And that the Nevi'im have a very special Inyan that they are Megala Inyanim in Oifen Kloli and in Oifen Mefulsam more than the Inyan from Ruach HaKodesh. Therefore, Lav Davki, everybody who could have Nevuah has it. Ki ein b'zatzera. And to give a dukmal there, we see this brought down in the Gemara that there were really hundreds and hundreds more Nevi'im that are mentioned in the Nach. Obviously, there's a time in the history of his Klal Yisrael, after David, before David HaMelech, around about his time, following David HaMelech, even in the time of Shaul HaMelech, where all sorts of people was Eichet to Nevuah. But we don't find the Nevuahs written in the Nach, or we don't find them mentioned even And the reason being that the Gemara says, Ki lo yahava nitzrach ladoiros. There was certain inyanim that they had certain inyanim, but it wasn't necessary for all the generations, or for those generations that were in, to affect the whole world in a way that would be a limud for all the other generations to come. So we could say that why doesn't the Eibusha give everybody Nevuah if he gives them Ruach HaKodesh? And then the Yesh B'Klal Mosai Mana, they should automatically get Nevuah, because lav dafke that everybody who could maybe have a Nevuah at any given stage gets it, because it's a special inyan which is nitzrach ladoiros or kol hadoirahu or ka'etiv is a mashing in Ruach HaKodesh. No. It's just very interesting. This is as man very mativ of a moment to give over a inyan which is vinogea eisato, and that's this inyan of Yoina ben Amitai and his Nevuah. You know the whole story with he's actually mentioned in Sefer Malachim. The truth is, Yoina ben Amitai is mentioned very briefly in Sefer Malachim. Beneged to a certain inyan which ain't kind of mochel lahari v'zeh. Over the Sefer Yoina, which is it's a very special type of a story where he's supposed to get a Nevuah and he runs away and he tries to go into the sea and the whole mass. And eventually he does come back and he does go give the Nevuah and it's taken this because they go and do tshuva and the whole mass. So, you know, what's the whole inyan of his Nevuah? We read that on Yom Kippur and it's considered a tremendous inyan. Yeah, they get after Yoina or Yom Kippur with the whole Arichas HaInyan. What mind of Kaminah from them Gans and Nevuah? He didn't even want a Nevuah. He tried to run away and he tried to behaltze, as I say, and then in the end he cast himself into the sea. And he would have, I mean, he would have just Rahman and he would have gone, if not for the whale. That's just a political start. So the Indian is, we look a bit closer and it's Nevuah. In certain places in the river Melech Hashem brings it become a Mekayim. Now is it Yoina ben Amitai? Why did he run away? For what's his Egilov? Why did he try to hide himself? Because at that particular time, there was a whole Indian that Melech Ashur, well, that's Bovel. Some people claim that Nineveh and Ashur are the same basic Malchus. That they were planning to come and take the Yidden out into Golis. They're planning to come take the Yidden into Golis. And it was a very, very difficult time in this man in the history from Yidden, until they eventually got around to do it, until eventually it happened. The whole Indian took time. And Yoina ben Amitai, he was very, very concerned. He was tremendously anxious about what's going to be with the Yidden. And therefore he understood as Amitzot Ma'as that Nineveh was Goyim. And the Eibusha said, you have to go and tell Nineveh that it's going to all be destroyed, and we'll see what happens with them. And Yoina was worried that they would do tshuva. And it brings a very fascinating in this forum and a great Meforshim in Yoina, and it's also mashmin HaZohar HaKodesh, that the Goyim are easier to hakim, that they should do tshuva in the way that they can do tshuva. Was a shai tshuva, it's full of all sorts of amazing shilas. Was a shai tshuva by Goyim. Oh, anyway, Ochapanim is Yoina ben Amitai. He was worried that if he will go and he will tell Osham, they will take it to do tshuva, they'll correct. That'll be a terrible kitcher against the Yidden, and it's likely to bring to the Churban Abayis and to the Golets. And therefore he was very worried. We goes to Franken Kashis after Eibusha, and therefore he was very worried that if he goes and gives that Nevuah, then maybe it might come out that indirectly that'll cause the Golets of the Jewish people. And I found that's why he wanted to run away. And Ad Kedikach is in the Yerushalmi, I think it's in the Yerushalmi. The Radak talks about Barichas Gedolah in the Sefer Yoina. There's a door of Machlokes, and some people say that Yoina wasn't Beseder, that he worried about the ben and not about the Av. He was worried about the ben and not the Av. So was it a pshat that he was worried about the Yidden, not the Eivester. The Eivester runs the world. The Eivester telling you to be a Novi wasn't dein business. So Yonah said, no. He said, these are my Yidden. This is my Brida. It's my brothers. How can I possibly say that? I don't worry about them. Yeah, that's more, in a way, that's more important. The Eivester knows how to find a nation. What are we going to do with the Yidden? And comes again the Machlekes. The Torah something that's one of the reasons why he had so many tzars, because he didn't worry about the Eivish. First of all, Novi has to worry about the Eivish. And others say, no, he was right. He was worried about the Yidden. That's what he's got to worry about first. It was a very fascinating discussion. I took the son Yerushalmi at this. The whole Plukta, the whole Inyan, the whole Inyan of the Sefer of Yonah is a sipur of Avos Yisrael. Behind the lines, it's a tremendous sipur of Avos Yisrael. And maybe that's a reason on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, everybody's supposed to worry about the Avzi. Everybody's supposed to worry about what's happening between them and the Avzi are going to give a good year, and we're going to have a good year, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have something else. With the other in so all of a sudden you read after Yonah ben Amitab, the whole Sipur, maybe the premise is that after Yom Kippur you've got to realize that the whole Yom Kippur is not worth anything if it's not based on Avos Yisrael. And therefore we see in Halacha that if you could ask somebody for Mechila and you didn't ask, then you're lacking in the halachas, and you can't get the Eivester to forgive you until Ploni ben Ploni forgives you. They state in the Gemara and in Shulchan Aruch. משום מה אין לבביש מהדה לא ראיתי כל כך מדקדקים בזה. אבל it is העניין that's going on in the city of Neville. You guys look them out. The city of Neville is one of the big cities in Russia. And the Mittler Rebbe said about Neville, Moses from the mountain. The Mittler Rebbe said, Halaluhu b'neivo v'chinoya. There's a pasuk in David HaMelech, says, Halaluhu b'neivo v'chinoya. So the Mittler Rebbe said, Halaluhu b'nevel. You have to praise in Neville, that Neville is this place where there's a big praise of the air. The guys don't know all these little quips and all these jokes. It's not a joke. I mean, that the Mittler Rebbe said it. I was at Neville, was a very special place, a very amazing city, a town. And in Neville, I heard from two people that came from Neville. And they said that on Erev Yom Kippur, they were tremendously makpid. They used to start early in the morning after Shachar, that everybody used to go around from house to house. They used to ask one another for Mechila. All the Chassidim, all the big Chassidim, they would all go in, one to the other, and to the other people. And the Rov would ask all the people that maybe it was Pagay and somebody, and they should be Michael here, and he didn't mean it. There's other people asked other people at the time. So it's a Kitan, because it's Mechila. So you can't say that it didn't exist in Lubavitch. It did. No, it did. Anyway, whatever. You see that the Yom Kippur is based on Avos Yisrael. That Avos Yisrael, therefore Yonah had Mesiras Nefesh for Avos Yisrael. At Karikat, that he gets into a kitruk. The people say, "What's your butter? You got to worry about the Avi. You're a shliach from the Avi. What are you worried about the Yidden?" And we see that he wasn't kosher there. And man, it's an amazing story. The Inyan from Yonah ben Amitai is an amazing story of a mensch. He had the highest in Yonim, and he gave him away for the sake of the COVID and the saving Golas for the Yidden. Me? Yeah, what's it you got? And my mother, the father, that's why the Rebbe used to, even before the Rebbe became Rebbe, they used to make a special minyan and give him Maftiyah. Because our Rebbeim, they were that koyach, they gave away all the koyachs and all this man. I mean, the Rebbeim gave away so much of their time, just for the sake of the cloud, just for the sake of Avos Yisrael. All the time. And I saw in a Sefer the other day, they bring down there, they write about the Rebbe Rashab, not a Chabadski. And the Rebbe Tzedek, and the Marash, and they write, Afu Pisha Hoyu, Sukim, kol kach ve'inyanei haklal, in helping Yidden. They gave away a tremendous amount of the time. Afu pikein kosvu, Eton loy hoya poisik, that their pen never seemed to stop in giving out this unbelievable heritage of unbelievable Torah in all sorts of in Benigla, Chassidus, Pinimis, Chitonius, Gam Yochad, that we see it's a linkage of all the Inyanim together, and that's in the Inyan of Danamitai. And therefore our Rabbein were tremendously happy to get Mafti. You know the story of the Rebbe Rashav, is it? He wanted to get Mafti and the guy said he can't give it to him. Remind me and I'll tell you the story. A whole big man about the Rebbe Rashav. He was once not in Lubavitch and he tried to get Mafti in, and they said at the beginning they're not going to give it because it belongs to the Gabbai. The Gabbai can give him Mafti. So the Gabbai said, you can't give him Mafti. Then he took a look and he saw how he done on Yom Kippur. Everybody thought he was just a visitor. They didn't know he was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he saw how he done on Yom Kippur. And he was just absolutely mind-boggled. He saw this type of Hogan. And everybody left the shul, and the whole shul was already night time, tiff in the night. And the Rebbe was there, it's just unbelievable. Nigun, the Rebbe used to daven with a mind-boggling Nigun. And he heard that. So he called in the Rebbe Rashav, at Yom Kippur in the morning, and he called him over and he said, I don't know what name to call him, Rabbi or Rav or whoever. He said, but I'm giving him Mafti. And he said, the Rebbe Rashav had Mafti. And it was a whole follow-up to the story, a whole big amazing, but we'll talk about that in another time. Edify. Regina ben Amitai, Al Chapani was zeker to his Navur, and it was Dafke Be'ez Nisach Hamayim. So, Hajum Chidz HaChochma, Dafke, Olochim Be'ez Nisach Hamayim, Dafke, Hoyu Shoevim Roha, HaKoidet. So, Ushafte Mayim Besosain. Besosain is a yin from Simcha, and Lo Stam Simcha, Lo Simcha Pnimiyas. The Chagasukas, Netisaf, Nisach Hamayim, that there was an additional inyan, not just the Nisach HaYayin, what Nisach HaYayin was always, but there was added into the Seder, the inyan of Nisach HaMayim, Shezeu Agilui Shalidei Atshuva de Yom HaKippurim. Shegam B'chidas HaChochma Mayebe. In other words, we see that the Shurish of all the Amshochis, B'kol Hemshech Chodesh Tishrei Achrim is from Yom HaKippurim. That's called the Klal HaGodel, HaKoilus, Kol HaInyonim. Over there, all in an Anim from the Maila, and the Amshocha, and the Gilui. Well, that's what he says. That the Anim from Nisach HaMayim Shezeu HaGilui. But it came through the Tshuva on Yom HaKippurim. And what was that poyo? That also the Sfiras HaChochma, Mamish B'Shel Shoi, well, that was Meir Gilui. And like we saw, not just Stam, but even the Chochma, how does the Maila Mia Parsa, Bein Chochma Da'atik and Chochma Stimua, even that was Meyaber, Godoi, and therefore, V'lochein Hoya was a Simcha Gedolah, it was a tremendous and unlimited Simcha for all the reasons we pointed out last night. Once Chochma is Mishkale, then it's a Simcha Bliin and Shomatiyas, it's a Mamish, a Simcha Amitiyas in the presence of the Eivish Mamish. V'sher Sham Shocher, Hu Mechinas Maya Nei Haye Yeshua. The Ayin of his Pnimis V'atim say, what he's the Makkah of all the Inyane Haye Yeshua. To the point that it just went by from Mamela. All the clippers and everything just became bottled, betachlis. Mamela, Omein Kenya he, that should be the Indian, as they said, we're not holding yet by Sukkot. Of whatever you learn in one part of the year, it's got a shaykhs with whatever happens in that particular Indian. Well, in fact, we happen to learn that now. And therefore, the Inif and Yud-based Tammuz is well known. The Inif and Yud-based Tammuz, the Rebbe says, the Inif and Mokkeh HaYeshuas, with the whole Arichis. And right now, in the days where we are, all the amazing Nisim were happening with the Rebbe in the prison, when they wanted all this. So it's true, he had terrible Yisurim. But it was unbelievable because they intended, shooting him with the guns to do. And the second night or third night after he was there, they took him out to shoot him, and he wandered around the wrong passage, and all of a sudden the two guards woke up, he wasn't there. And until they found him, there was this order came from the big window upstairs, and it said not to carry out the sentence of racism from the man. It's unbelievable. Nisim when he flies. And I know it should be in a name from Mokeh Haye Shua. Praise Hashem. Right. The Shabbat the Shmaya Shmini Atzeres Grace Samech Tes. So you wanted it, so you're going to get it. I don't know if you wanted it, but the man das kol amei ha'oretz ki avaya hu elikim. And then it's written after that, Ein Hui. That's a pasuk that we say at the end of the Akofis. The Akofis during Sukkot, and then at the end of the Akofis on Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. After all the Akofis, then we say that pasuk right at the end. What it means in Pashtus, in order that all the Amei Ha'oretz, all the peoples of the earth should know, and they should come to know in a name from Das, Ki Havaya Hu Eli Kim, the Shem of Dave, Shem Havaya, he is also the infant Shem Elo. He's also the infant Elohim. Now that's also the siyum. It's like more as a completion of the famous prayer what Shlomo HaMelech said when he made the Chanukas Beis Hamikdash Harishon, when he built the Beis Hamikdash. At the beginning he said this amazing long prayer. It's put down in Malachim Aleph, chapter 8, if you want to look at it. It's amazing, unbelievable prayer. It's a whole couple of pages in the Nach that Shlomo HaMelech prayed when he completed, and he offered up a couple of thousand shlomims and all sorts of amazing korbanos, and he got him ein shiadot. As they say in Yiddish, it's not a kitan. Things were happening at that particular time. And so Shlomo HaMelech finishes the whole prayer with this statement, which is this pasuk. And he says, "Ve'yu dvorai asher ishchananti lifnei Hashem." V'seiton lifnei avaya yom dvar yom b'yomi la'aseis mishpat avdei mishpat amoi beis Yisrael. And then he says, "Laman das kol amei ha'oretz."
This is the pasuk that we're explaining in Chitas, in the Tanya right now.
In
Chitas, isn't it? No.
What is?
I thought that we're discussing this in Chitas, in the Tanya.
Tanya?
Yeah, we're learning about the identity of Hashem.
Hashem?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. It's funny, my hearing is really sort of getting confused lately. I didn't hear exactly what you were saying, but you decided to withdraw the silence. Yeah. All right. So somebody had got very angry with me that I want to go get my hearing fixed, and so I came up with sort of a quip. And I said, "What I need to hear, I hear." And so here's a good example. So anyway, so it's written over there that Shlomo HaMelech completed the whole unbelievable Chanukah, Beis Hamikdash, with those words. That was his siyum, his tefillah. And it's very fascinating, just for our inyan, that it's written that last is Mishpat, Avdei, Mishpat Amei Yisrael, Dvar Yom B'Yomei. Rashi brings over there, last is Mishpat Avdei, says Rashi, Lahatzio es Bonov. B'nai Yisrael mi ha'oyev. This is the trust. That the Yevsha does the mishpat for the Jewish people. It means to save the Jewish people from their enemies. That's they state. So once again, Amen. Can you hear? Ratzon. Unfortunately, some of the enemies have to be in our own midst. But the ikka is that we have to be saved from the enemy's kipshutek. However, Chorik lahovin oimrei laman das which is the word das is an indication of an Indian amok. I mean, even in the simple taich of the word das, if you say that somebody comes to know something, then that means he's aware of it in a full oifen. So therefore, was it a pshat laman das kol ameho? Oretz, that this Indian is shaykh, and the main kilo kavana is that it should be bedas by the ameha. Oretz, what that means, the peoples and the umasah. Oilam, how do you do is a tzorik leish gam in the shamis as well. And we'll see not only just gam, but it has to be beikah by the yid. So I mean, why would Shlomo HaMelech besiyum this amazing, unbelievable tefillah that he said after the whole initiation at a Beis HaMikdash, he says, "Leman das kol ha'mayors ki havaya hu Elokim." Yeah, you know it. I mean, that's a yediyah which is shy to Yidden. So first we have to say, well, it should be shy to the Yidden, and they should come to know it Shleimus, and then, it'll go over and affect the Ameha Oretz. And here we see Shlomo sums up the ganze Riches, the ganze Pnimia of the whole Chanukah with the statement that the Goyim, they should come to Das. So that's why he said, at least the Chalapach is also by the Yidden. It was by the Goyim. Dagam Yisrael, hey, ma'aminim be'emunah d'avaya Elokim. Even though Yidden believe, and Yidden believe be'emunah Shlema, as is well known. Yidden, according to the Gemara, are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. People, Yidden are people are believers, and they're born from believers, and the first believer was Avraham Avinu, when they come to Arichid. Therefore, Yidden automatically know that Havaya hu Elokim mitzad emunah. In other words, that's a inin that emunah Peshuta tells them, birur haki godel benafshom, that that's the case. Yeah, here's another nuance. Im kein b'klal. Why do they need to know it? He said, "Mikol mokim harei yediyah v'asoga b'zeh hu inyan nailema." In other words, that even though you've got it in the form of emunah, of the yediyah v'hasoga, to know, the inyan of Havaya hu Elokim, and how it is that Havaya hu Elokim, or Elokim hu Havaya v'chulu. All of that is a great inyan that you should come to knowledge and even hasoga in that Indian, and it's an Indian Naila Yisa. And not only that, far yesh tzivuyel, there's even a commandment in the Torah, K'moshe kosav v'yodata ha'yoyim. Ki havai, what's the hemshech over there? Yodata ha'yoyim v'ha'shei v'yiso. El livovelcha ki havai hu Elohim. That's a mitzvah. And a mitzvah, he said, the Rebbe goes into Shlavim. He said, first of all, to know this Indian is a tremendous knowledge. That's a tremendous Indian that a man should connect himself. And not only is it a tremendous Indian, it happens to be a mitzvah in the Torah to do that. In other words, that the Torah is not mistapek, it's not sufficient for the Torah to know that you as a Yid understand, and you're aware of the fact that Havaya hu Elokim, mitzad the emunah that you have, mitzad emunah pshuta, mitzad ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, that you have that, that's all fine and wonderful, and moving that's a tremendously important Indian by Yidden. However, said the Rebbe, we see that nois plazer, there's an Indian naila b'yoysa that you should have yediyah v'ha Hasoga. And if you think, that's a Chabadski Indian, you'd have Yediyah Hasoga, Mehechi Teisi. So the Rebbe said, no, there's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah in the Torah, to come lidei Hasoga, and not to rely on their emunah, not to be yoytza with their emunah, or davke v'yodata, hayyim, not even from continuousness, that you must always be aware of that Indian, be Yediyah v'ha Hasoga. K'moshe kosav yodata ha'yoyim v'chulu ki havaya hu Elohim. Im kain, says the Rebbe, it's not understandable. Ma'hu inyan l'man das kol ha'mei ha'oretz. Was it a shot to the Ameha? Or is what that means the Goyim, the Umasar? The Umasar Ilo. And Mamela Havai, who Elokim, the Rebbe says on 3 levels. Well, that's the Ina from Yidden. First of all, Yidden believe in that Be'emunah Shleima, and it's well known at the Rambam. It's interesting, amazing how it's got projects. We see in these Inyonim that according to the Shurim that they learn that Yidden learn in the Rambam, they finished yesterday the Sefer Mada, and this is Hilchas Tshuva. So right at the end of Hilchas Tshuva, the Rambam writes that in order to come to Avos Hashem, then Mitzvah Aleinu, we're commanded that you have to be Oisikin Ve'adata, you have to come to know the Eivish, Arichas, and only through that can you be Makayim the mitzvahs in the Torah, to know the Eivish and to love him. Only if you'll be Makayim that Indian of Yediyah, Boy Yisborach. And at the beginning of Hilchas Yesodei Torah, in Perek Aleph, in Halacha Gimel, Dalet, the Rambam writes over there, B'negeh to Avos Hashem, Yeh Shalovi, Lidei Avosei, El Alidei Yediyah Boy Yisborach. You have to have knowledge, and he brings that positive, Yadat Hayim, V'ashevei Shalovevecha, that's in to bring into your heart, that's in for now. It's amazing, as Goch Prashis, a pink the Rambam, Shvat Azazah. In the yesterday, it's Shir and the Rambam. Anyway, come to Eslafis here. That is, first of all, there's a in Naila B'Yoyze, Mitzad the Odom, that he should come to know Elokus, and it just so happens that if you want to say, well, that's not for me, you can't do that either. That's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, mamish. It's a in which shart to Yidden, boiven, move hak. In the most singularized way, it's all centered around the Yidden. It was the Yidden of bringing that das to the Ameha, to the Ameha. So here we see the cloud God that you can't just rely on Emunah. Emunah is an essential Inyan. We're now in the Inyan from the Meraglim. We see that the Meraglim, they will hear about Emunah. They're all great people, but somehow or another, they got their Emunah, mixed up. Something happened with that. So we see that there's an infinite Emunah, which you have to have the Emunah of Ma'aminim. B'nei Ma'aminim, you gotta be right and corrected and weggestellt, as they say in Yiddish, put in the right way with Emunah. So the Rebbe said that first of all and foremost, Hashem Elokim is a very, very profound name. First and foremost, it's got to be an Emunah. And then, the mitzvah, the Torah, is to bring that into Novid. And this is the famous Taina of Chabad and Lubavitch, based on the Rambam. And Oid Gedolei Yisrael, B'chol HaDoros, said it's not enough just to rely on Emunah. You can't just say that we all have Emunah in this, and therefore we don't have to be Isaac in knowing the Eivishter. And we see clearly that there's a Inyan Naila, which is a mitzvah, to be mishtadel, kama she'efsher, on the part of the Odom, to know Elokus. And not only to know, but to know what is the Inyan from Havai and what's the Inyan from Elokim, and how are they ein oid, and how are they kula ha. As it brought down in the Zohar Kodesh in Pasha Ves Chonon. But that's the same place with that mitzvah, because we had Ata Hayim. But the Zohar Kodesh says it's a pekuda kadmoa mi'oiraisa. It's a very primordial commandment in the whole Torah to know that Havai hu Elokim. Well, I would have thought there would have been a bit more as pilots, but I see that people here in these class are very, they're very famoichin, they're very powerful moichin. It's more like control his pilots. So the Rebbe says, what's the Inyan from teaching the Goyim that they're in?
Didn't we already fix that up by going to Mitzrayim, knowing the difference between Havai and Elokim?
But they went from Mitzrayim.
Yeah,
well, that might have assisted them to come to some greater, appreciation of it. Although Chalili, you don't have to go through Mitzrayim in order to know. What you wanted to suggest that once he went through Mitzrayim and they came out to the Geula, then they were aware that the fact that Elokim is really the same thing as a light.
Right.
Yeah. Where you've been learning the V'yadaita Hayoy. It's in a Chanami. The Rebbe wants nowadays that we should have it L'chatchila in Reim from Goli, and it's been enough Mitzrayim, enough the Sheinas, tell we know them Mashpich Hayah. So Kumtais, that of in a Chanami, Kumtais, it's an Indian, and here we see that Shloim Melech at that moment, he said, Laman Das Kol HaMeho Oretz. You got to bring it to the Goyim. So here we see this amazing hint, this amazing beginning in history at a moment of the Beis Hamikdash. So ultimately, all these Indians are going to reach those Goyim. So he doesn't know if it's. Yeah, and that's what we see the Rebbe and the whole unbelievable shleimus before the building of the Beis Hamikdash. You got to prepare the Goyim. They got to have a basic knowledge, even the Avayahu Elohim. So Emes, one of the Pirushim that's brought in, so the Rebbe himself brings it in Reish Nun Ches and in other places, that the word das can also mean shvira. The word das can mean a breakage. Yedu Bahem Anshe Sukkes. Got in Sheftim. That's all readers of Nishrang and them. Well, the word das can mean breakage. And therefore, one of the Taichin is Laman Das Kol HaMehoretz. They should break the Goyim. With a Vayu, you should break them apart. There is such a type of the simple mashmois of the Indian is without bringing those to the Goyim.
Weren't there several times that Hashem said, I'm going to do something amazing like make a nace or make
a nace?
Or make the Yidden win a war to show that
you mean the Melchamos Gog and Magog or something like that?
Not after Gog and Magog, but just Bechlam Melchamos, like in Nach and stuff, where there'd be, the Yidden wouldn't be Zeicha to win the war, but Hashem would give them this close to prove, like, to sort of cover up to the Goyim.
So what you're saying is that we would have been Kabbalah the Nevuahs the way it should have been, and we wouldn't have to have Melchamos. Yeah, Zenachon. Our Tzadeh is a time, so there had to be some in the world. Ein lanu Havana begoidel han stories of those inyonim. But en chanami, it's like the whole ilu zachinu. If we would have always been zeicha to understand them, we would have been able to avoid a lot of inyonim. So the Rebbe says, if you want to understand that, then you got to get moving. In other words, we've got to get back into our inyonim, and then eventually we'll come to understand what is the Yin of an Avayahu Elokim, and how is it child L'Kol HaMeho. L'Hovin Zeh, Yesh L'Hakti Mashen is Boil Yiyu, Da'atzilas Hu Mamutza Bein Erein Sefer Ma'atzil Elanir. We started early, back in the previous Maimah, or even in the Maimah from the Onoicha Anoichi, we saw that the Kavona Claudius in the Eros for Kalim of Elam Ma'atzilas is that they should be a Mamutza between Erein Sefer Ma'atzil to Nivroim. In other words, that the Eros, they are literally the Tzada Elin of the Mamutza, and the Kalim are the Tzada Sheni in the Mamutza. And on the day, the Eros for Kalim, then we are Matamsum the air, and we bring down into Olam as Bria Yetzir V'yah Hashem. Liyoi, ki Gilui Ba'atzilas, due to the fact that the Gilui and Atzilas who Gam Kain Rach Bechinas Ha'olam Etzum Tzemes. וגם זה על ידי הפסק הפרסה שבין המאציל לאציל. Now what is the touch lijois? What does the Rebbe mean with that? Because l'chera the kasha is the old kasha. How can you get from Atzilus to Biyah? Atzilus is mamish elakus, and Biyah is nivroim. That ein aroich haki godel v'haki otzum. She'yachol להיות ein aroich yosem mi mizeh k'yadua. How can Atzilus Biyah? Mamutza, Atzilus is elakus. So therefore he said no. That in Atzilus Kusha, you've already gone through. That in Atzilus you've gone through a series of inyonim b'derech tzimtzum and leader. Dahainu ha'ora bilvad. How did that come? It came through a union of tzimtzum, ha'ora mitzumtzemes, but in addition to that, the union from parsa. And we saw the whole, not just the parsa between Atzilus and Biyah. That's only when we're already functioning to get to Biyah. We saw in order to make the oyer a mamutza, that it should be able to have a kiru, that we were medactic in the Maimon earlier, that it should be a kiru, el biyah, then we had to make a shimtum, and we saw that wasn't enough. We had to have the union of parsa as well, and not kirikach. We saw there was a parsa between etzem elakus and atzila. And even Lamaila said there was a parsa between Chochmah Da'atik and Chochmah Stir Moa, and then there was another parsa between Chochmah Stir Moa and Hachila. Shali Deizeh. What was we saw the tremendous achievement Kaviyocho of those parsas? We saw that Ali Deizeh Misaveh Ha'oyer. We saw that it occurs this amazing phenomenon that literally the oil becomes coarser or slightly thickened in such a way that it's able to be mislavish bekelim da'atzilas. And so we saw that what was the musik of misaveh, the oil, that it loses the inyan of peshitas, that we already take away the etzem peshitas. And we saw that there's a special form of ein seif, which is mitzad peshitas. And the Ein Seif mitzad pshit is an Ein Seif amiti b'li kol advaras klal. But there can be a inyan which is no longer pshitas, but it's still mitzad the koyach Ein Seif shaboy. It's also Ein Seif lehispash to say. So therefore we saw that that's the inyan of these avos of the oil, that we should take away that koyach pshitas in the oil, meaning there's no shaykhs whatsoever to any specificality, and we have megala in the oil a shaykhs to eishishu inyonim protim da'ainu spheres, okay, and that's called already a thickening in the oil, because that's already a geder of eishishu metzias occurs in the simplicity of the oil. Therefore, once that has occurred, it's possible for the oil to be mislavish in the kelim da'ah. Even though lagabi the kelim, it's also still poshut, but as we pointed out, according to rov opinions in the Kabbalah, there's already spheres in the oil. It's already got a certain trace of no longer peshitas, and therefore min motza esmina, as it were, each inyan in the oil can find its kelim. Validei slabshas bekelim da'atzilas yuchaliya isachacha gile ha'ora babi. Then there can be a further aura through the inyonim of Malchus with its parsa into the inyan of Bihar. Velula bechinas ha'parsa now. If it weren't for that parsa between Ein Seif and the Tzolim, meaning the inyan of Chochmah Da'at Chochmah Stimoya, even in Olam Atzilas, it wouldn't have been able to come by his Slavshas, even though Olam Atzilas is QOD, the last step towards Biyah, or B'etzalakus, and even there wouldn't have been in a form of Yichud Oiras Bekelim, if not that parsa, if not that thickening of the Isavas oil. There wouldn't have been any possibility of being mamshich oil into be ki'im alidei shemisaveh ha'oil alidei ha'parsa. So we see it's a very important concept, this whole union at the Isavas oil, and in Ayin Beis and other places the Rebbe Masber there in a slightly different even, that the Isavas oil is really got to do with the etzem coming about of the kelim in Atzil. It's not just that it helps the oil to be mislavish, but to a certain extent it helps in the etzem coming into being of the kelim, or the ability of the oil to relate beklal to kelim, etc. Alidei parsa u'bov v'chinas slabshis ba'atzilas. As yochaliya is a gilei babi, then it's possible for her to be gilei biyah. So it's an old Siddish custom that you don't, if you reach a new Masita, then you already start the Masita, you don't just leave it. So we'll learn a couple of lines, and then we want to say, if Rabbi Akiva didn't used to say that, Rabbi say he gives man lokum, he take Beis HaMidrash, Rabbi Akiva never said that, ever, except on Erev Yom Kippur,
Erev Pesach.
Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach stated that he did. Gesagt, that he gives man lokum to take Pesach Medrash. But that was big mitzat the children and that the children shouldn't sleep and the leaders should catch them before they slept. Otherwise, it would appear that he wouldn't have been particularly in a hurry on Erev Pesach. V'hinenu dehine bechinas kesa elyain who bechinas ain't safe mamish bechina taktina shabamatzah. Now the first part of this mimer, you're going to see there's really all sorts of amazing things mentioned here. Now there always seems also something to give a jump, the keser elyain. He starts mentioning all sorts of neshomers and people and miles. Obviously something very unusual is going on around here. So he says that Keser Elyain, who bechinas ain't safe mamish, bechinas taktoina shebamatzil. What is Keser Elyain? There's a bechina taktoina shebamatzil. What is that? That is atik, not just arik. No, this is mamish atik. Bechina taktoina, that's the kaviyochel, the law aspect of the Eivstim. So there's a kaviyochel atzmas. V'ashefa v'aora mi'itoi. He said from such a level it can't be miskala even in Chokhmah. And for that it's mashma afilu in Chokhmah stimua, not even in Chokhmah da'atzila. Ki liyoishe inyan atzimtzum hu shemikol mokim nimshuk mahusa. The whole inyan from tzimtzum is that we've seen not the tzimtzum harishan. Not the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum rishon is another Indian altogether. Of a kaviyochel, normal tzimtzum. After the tzimtzum harishon, means that the same mahus is nimshach, but we just, as it were, we had to call it, we hold it back a little bit. We sort of don't allow it to be meir the whole shleimus. Yeah. Although we don't actually interfere with the etzem miskalas of the earth, we just, as it were, hold back the full ashpur. That's why I use the word shefa. Amamir, it says the Rebbe, that's in brackets, v'hainu b'tzimtzumim shebishtalshelos ha'oiret. That's only the tzimtzum and the shtalshelos of the oiret. Ki ha'tzimtzum harishoin, well, that's something else altogether. That was hoyer b'chinas siluk, hoyer harishin lagamrei, v'amshochas hakav, hu b'chinas dilug. It was a tremendous jump. What we're talking about parsa, and that's much more ein aroik. That's a famous mind parsa vayero. Once you've already got the kav, then the tzimtzumim heimchid miut le. So they're only a miut, and therefore they're good. They're megala diina from mahusa air. Well, as I said, they're tzimtzum levad iya shali is ashpur. Shefa, Ba'atzilas, v'anu sheyeh b'chinas eses filas, b'chinas slabshas, b'keilim, achar idei masach ha'mavdu, shemavdu, beinei uvein ha'nishpoim, itoi. Al idei zeh nasi savasa, that this has to be a parsa between Keser Elyain, Pnimis Atik, and the Makablim Mimena, those are the spheres. And that's that parcel that we saw, which is really two parcels we saw earlier in the Hampshire. So it should be a good evening. And the Rike will sein, even from Erev Toiv, Erev is even from Masikhes. From Aurora, Oreiv, even from Masikhes. It should be the eminence of sweetness of the Geula, and even from Gilel Lakus. Mata mamish. Good.
All day.
Oh.